In the middle of hell, a boy made a promise, and 70 years later, he kept it. His name was David Wisnia. He was just 16 when the Nazis captured him and sent him to Auschwitz. Before the war, he had lived in Warsaw, the son of a devout Jewish family. He sang in the synagogue. He studied music. He dreamed of becoming a singer like his grandfather. But war doesn't care about dreams. When the Germans came, David lost everything. His parents were murdered. His brother vanished. He was shoved into a cattle car alone, clutching only a small prayer book and his voice. At Auschwitz, his name became a number, tattooed on his arm, shaved, stripped, starved. He was assigned to hard labor, carrying bricks, digging trenches, moving corpses. Each morning he woke not knowing if he'd survive the day. He witnessed executions, beatings, disappearances. Hope was dangerous. Silence was survival. But David did something dangerous. He sang, at first softly, humming prayers to himself, melodies he remembered from before the war. Then one evening, a fellow prisoner whispered, "Sing louder. They need entertainment." David thought it was a trap, but he sang. His voice, rich, trained, and soulful, echoed through the air like something sacred. An SS officer overheard and summoned him the next day. David expected punishment. Instead, he was told to sing again, this time in front of a full room of German guards. He sang, not because he wanted to, but because in Auschwitz, anything that kept you alive was a gift from God. From that day forward, David became the unofficial camp singer. He was spared hard labor. He sang at officer dinners, for visiting dignitaries, and at weekly gatherings, sometimes in German, sometimes in Hebrew, always with the same goal, to live another day. It was during one of those days, while sweeping near the administrative barracks, that he saw her. Zippi. Her name was Helen Zippi Spitzer. She was 20, Slovak, intelligent, educated. She had been among the first Jewish women transported to Auschwitz. Her fluency in German and calm demeanor had earned her a clerical position. She worked in the camp's administrative office, typing documents, sorting names, handling prisoner files. But Zippi was more than a secretary. She was a ghost in the machine, a quiet resistor, a protector. And to David, she was a light. They exchanged glances, then smiles, then scraps of conversation between stolen moments. Their connection was immediate, intense, forbidden, and real. They began to meet secretly. A nod in the corridor, a whispered word in passing, a folded note hidden in a crack in the wall. In a place built to erase identity, they remembered each other's names. Zippi helped where she could. She warned David of dangerous inspections. She altered his record to make him less visible to those with power. She brought him scraps of food when she could. Always careful, always watching. David sang, Zippi saved. They became something more than friends, not lovers. There was no room for that in Auschwitz, but something deeper, a shared survival, a covenant. One day she said, "If you survive this, find me, promise me." And David did. But Auschwitz was not static. In late 1944, as the Red Army approached, the Nazis began emptying the camp. Prisoners were loaded into trucks or forced on death marches. Many were shot where they stood. Others froze in the snow. David and Zippi were separated without warning. Their last moment together was a glance across a yard crowded with prisoners before she was shoved onto a transport. He tried to push through the crowd, tried to reach her, but she was gone. David was later transferred to Dachau. He nearly died of typhus. He was liberated in April 1945 by American troops. At the time, he weighed less than 80 pounds. But he had survived, and he had a promise to keep. After the war, David tried to find Zippi. He checked refugee lists, asked around at survivor camps. Nothing. Eventually, he moved to the United States, built a new life, became a cantor, just as he had once dreamed. Married, had children, but part of him never stopped looking. Whenever he heard the name Zippi, he paused. He sang at weddings and funerals, at Yom Kippur services and Holocaust memorials. His voice had saved him, and now it helped others heal. But in quiet moments, when no one else was around, he'd close his eyes and whisper her name. Then, 70 years later, everything changed. A researcher in Europe compiling testimonies from female Auschwitz survivors contacted David. She had been reviewing documents and found a name, Zippi Spitzer, alive, living in California, in her 90s, with a family of her own. David couldn't believe it. He wrote, she answered. Then he called. When she picked up the phone, neither spoke for a few seconds. Then she said, "I was waiting." They met in person not long after. Two old souls weathered by time, face to face for the first time in 7 decades. She smiled and said, "You remembered." He laughed through tears. "I promised." They talked for hours, days, rebuilding a timeline, sharing what each had thought lost. Zippi revealed something that David never knew. During the war, he had always believed he was kept alive because of his singing, but Zippi told him the truth. "They put your name on the execution list more than once," she said. "Each time I removed it, or changed the date, or altered the paperwork. You were too visible, too talented. They wanted you gone. I made you disappear. On paper." David was stunned. "You saved me," he whispered. Zippi squeezed his hand. "No, you saved yourself. I just made sure you had the chance. They didn't become lovers. They didn't try to reclaim lost time. They didn't need to. They had already shared more than most people do in a lifetime. Together, they began to speak publicly, gave interviews, told their story, not of romance, but of resilience, memory, and the quiet heroism of choosing to care. David's grandson eventually joined him on stage, singing alongside him. The voice that once saved a life now passed on to another generation. Zippi's granddaughter, a writer, published her memoirs and helped preserve documents showing how she had altered prisoner records, delaying death for dozens, maybe hundreds. They honored the dead, but they also celebrated the living. David died in 2021. Zippi passed before him. But before they left this world, they kept the promise they made in the ashes of Auschwitz. They told the truth. They remembered each other, and they gave the world one more story worth hearing. In the darkest place on earth, a teenage boy made a promise, and 70 years later, he kept it. If this story moved you, don't let it end here. Subscribe to Voices from the Camps and help us keep these memories alive. New videos every week, true stories of resilience, hope, and the human spirit.